Sojola here. I welcome you to the industrialization series. This will be a number of videos that will follow, basically explaining, defining what industrialization is and how it affects us, and how actually it got to the shores of South Africa, to be specific. Now, in this specific video, we'll be looking at two aspects. The first aspect of industrialization will be basically looking at the definition of industrialization. When you look at industrialization, what exactly are you talking about? The second aspect will be us looking at the pre-industrialization era. So number one, let's start with the definition. The definition of industrialization is basically the introduction of machinery, equipment, or tools, right, and using using new sources of energy, right, and from that resultant process, basically the engineered materials or the product that results from the industrialization process. So now, when we look at the pre-industrialization era, right, it was fundamental in agricultural society, right? Now, when we look at how we have defined industrialization through the three aspects, right, which is your source of energy, right, the material, the machinery developed and the tools developed with the products that come out of the industrialization process. So basically, when we look at the agricultural pre-industrialization society and we try to look at it from the definition of industrialization, now when we look at the sources of power, for instance, right, in the pre-industrialization age, basically there were two sources of power, which was manpower, where human beings actually used their own strength, right, their own hands and their own skills to achieve something in terms of moving the products, creating a product, or cooking a product or whatever, right? So it was fundamentally human beings and animals, right? When it comes to animals, cows were basically used to plow the field. When we look at cows, they powered that. Cows were also used as a heat source, right? They would be tied in a room, right? Inserted in a room, which basically had a small ventilation machine, which led their exhaled breath into maybe certain houses and things like that. And that's how cows were used. They were also used to plow. You take two cows, you put a yoke, right, on the two cows, and you push that across the field to prepare the soil for planting and things like that. Another thing, it was the horse. The horse was basically used as a transport, right? Taking people from one place to another and things like that. Another thing is a donkey. Donkey, I'd compare the horse to more of a car and the donkey to much more of something more heavy duty, maybe a 1 ton pickup truck or van or buggy, right? So when we look at the power sources, right, and how it actually developed in the agricultural pre-industrialization society, it was of this nature, right? When we look at the tools which were developed, we can also say knives, spears, shields, the equipment to grind your agricultural crops, for example, maize, to make it a fine powder so that you can be able to cook it, right? So these were the tools and machinery and various things which were developed, when it comes to the equipment and machinery of the industrialization process, right? The third one were basically the materials used, right? The materials used basically composed of leather, cotton, wool, and wood, right? So these were basically the materials used for the pre-industrialization age. They mostly contain these things, but they basically, yes, they did have these things, but they basically mostly were used in the agricultural society. For more information on industrialization, please watch the next video.